I tell you guys, I don't know if it's going to end up in a blooper reel or if I'm going to keep it in the video or what, but the whole universe has tried to stop me from making this video. Every time I have gotten down to make this video, something has happened. The cat got sick. We couldn't find the almond extract. I've been having bad brain days. Like, just every time I sit down for a break and I had a nap by accident and I lost the time I had to shoot. It's just been, I am making this damn video. It's happening. It's right now. It's biscotti. Hey again, everybody, and welcome back to my tiny basement kitchen. I am Tamara Jones, your baker in the basement. Now, so far, I've been trying to tackle recipes that seem intimidating, but thank you, oven. So far, I've been trying to tackle recipes that seem intimidating, but they're actually pretty easy when you break them down. Today, we're doing something that's not really hard, but it does have kind of a lot of steps. So you want to set aside a bit of extra time for this one, but we are making biscotti. Not just any biscotti, we are going to make a cranberry white chocolate almond biscotti. So let's have a look at our ingredients. So first off, we have a cup and a half of butter, 1 3/4 cups of sugar, 6 large eggs. Our flavorings, I've got an orange here that I'm going to be zesting, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, a teaspoon of almond and, wait a minute, what is that? Anise extract. Now, traditional biscotti recipes do usually include anise, but it tastes like black licorice, and I hate black licorice, and this is my biscotti, so sorry, Nana, and any other Italians I might offend. No anise in here. What else have we got? We've got a cup of dried cranberries, a cup of sliced almonds, a cup of roughly chopped white chocolate chunks. I want them nice and big and chunky. Dry ingredients include 6 cups of all-purpose flour, which is a ton, but we are making a big batch of biscotti here. That's 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a half teaspoon of salt, and is that star anise? Get out of here. Now, I've actually had a couple of viewers mention to me that they find it a lot easier to follow the recipe when it's all written out nicely. So in the description, I'm actually linking to a blog post where I've got the whole recipe written out with all the ingredients and instructions and everything. So if you want to actually make this at home and that's easier for you, check out the description. In the meantime, let's get started. Our first step is to combine our butter with our sugar. You'll see recipes say cream together, and all that means is blend them together until they're creamy. You can do that with a wooden spoon, hand mixer, a stand mixer, whatever works for you. I happen to have a hand mixer. Now, I had my butter at room temperature for like days, but I live in a basement. It's a little bit cold down here. My butter's a little more firm than it should be, so it needs a little extra time. Okay, so when it's all creamy together, it's all one color, then you're ready to move on to the next step. Next up, large eggs. Best to have these at room temperature if you can, and just get them in one at a time. And if you're using a mixer, just beat them in on low. If you're doing it by hand, just beat it till it's well combined, and do that 6 times. Here we go. Now, you might be able to see here that all my butter is sticking to the side. Always have a silicone spatula handy and scrape your sides down. That's like probably my #1 advice. No matter what you're baking, scrape down your sides, or you are going to end up with weird patches of chunky stuff. Now, you want to add your extract while you're adding your eggs. So, along with egg number 2, here goes my almond extract. Wow, and just right away, the smell of almond is everywhere. Almond extract is super powerful. You're not often going to see a recipe that calls for a whole teaspoon of it or more, because such a small amount goes such a long way. The only reason we're using that much is because this is going to make 4 loaves that are going to be sliced up into biscotti. It's going to make like 60 biscotti. And if you don't want 60 biscotti, don't stress. Half of this recipe works just perfectly. It halves very nicely. All right, we got half our eggs in here. Egg number 3. That was egg number 4. This is egg number 5. I've lost count. I've forgotten how to count. Finally, egg number 6. You'll notice that I crack my eggs by smacking them flat on the counter. A lot of people smack them on the edge of a bowl. And the main reason you don't want to do that is because the edge of the bowl will drive the shell inwards into the egg. That's going to give you more potential eggshell in your final product, and it's also more likely to break the yolk. So if you're doing something where you're trying to separate the yolks out, really make sure you're smacking your egg on a flat surface or against another egg. I'll have to demonstrate that in another video. I'm out of eggs now. Okay, with this last egg, I'm going to zest in the zest of 1 orange. And it should be like, I don't know, a tablespoon and a half of zest. And this step's optional. Actually, it was hubby John that suggested the bit of orange zest to give it a little bit of brightness. And if you're zesting an orange and you're not going to use the whole thing right away, don't throw it away. You can wrap it in plastic wrap, you can eat it within a day, or you can freeze it and it'll still be good for using for juice. Just going to put it aside for now. All the eggs and flavorings. Giving her another scrape down. Once you've got all the eggs and flavorings in there, you might have a batter that looks like it's trying to curdle. And that's just because you have a very high liquid content with your butter. Once you start adding in the flour and combining it, it's going to come together, so don't panic. So the next step is we want to sift in our flour and our other dry ingredients. So we've got the flour, a bit of salt, a bit of baking soda, and we're just going to start sifting it in there. Just a bit at a time. And like always, if you get some on the table, don't worry about it. You can always wipe it up later. Baking can be messy sometimes, and that is okay. Especially if you're baking with kids, you know? Kids need to make messes. As long as you teach them how to clean them up. That's the important part. Alright, that actually didn't take very long at all. Woo! Great. Now, I'm going to start mixing this with my spatula. And although it is a wet and sticky dough, I often find that by the end of it, you got to get in there with your hands to really make it come together. You got to kind of fold it and squish it and make it into a dough. And I'm adding in my cranberries. Just kind of breaking up some that are all clumped together. Because you probably don't want to bite into like a tablespoon of cranberries in your biscotti. So just unclump them if they're stuck together. My slivered almonds. And my white chocolate chunks. Now for my white chocolate chunks, I don't know about you, but the big box store near me has these giant Belgian chocolate bars. And this is about half of one of these. Comes out to about a cup once you chunk it up. The other half I've cut up really finely because we're going to melt that and use it for decoration at the end. So that's what that's been sitting over there for. So yeah, they're like $5. Not too hard to find. 400 gram bars. I used to have a mixing bowl one size bigger than this. And it fell. And it cracked. If you want to help me buy a new mixing bowl, I don't have it going yet, but I am planning on doing a Patreon. So keep an eye out for more information on that coming soon. And maybe y'all can help me buy a new mixing bowl so I won't have so much trouble. You really do want to use, if you're going to do the full recipe like I am, use the biggest darn bowl you've got. You know what this means, honey? I'm gonna have to go to Kitchen Stuff Plus. Dun dun dun. Condition Plus is like my favorite store on earth. But it's dangerous because I go there and then all my money disappears somehow. All my money disappears and all my kitchen storage space suddenly gets smaller. It's the weirdest thing. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you about a tool I use in the kitchen that's very important that I don't think I've really talked much about before. I have chronic pain conditions and other medical crap that you probably don't want to hear about, but basically I run out of energy very quickly. So it's super important to have a backup chef, a sous chef, someone who can get in there when I'm running low. So Jonathan, would you be so kind as to step in for me? And of course, if you're using a machine mixer, then you probably don't need a backup chef. Say hello, John.
Hi.
I didn't give him a lot of time to prepare, sorry. Also, if you look at the clock, you can see what time it is. Oh, no, you can't because it's the oven. Haha. I don't know if you can see the microwave clock, but it's 1 o'clock, and I'm not telling you if that's AM or PM. So if we're a little extra wacky, you can guess why. Can you get in there with your hands and just, yeah, get them real good and clean, and then just smoosh the heck out of it. There's actually 2 reasons that I'm employing John right now. Reason 1 is, yeah, I have energy issues. Reason number 2, I just got my nails done. And you do not want nail polish in your food. So don't be me. Don't do fancy nails right before you're making a big recipe. Or if you think ahead better than I did, you can get food safe gloves. I forgot to do that. Sorry, sweetie. So what you're doing is you're getting in there with your hands and just folding it. Like just lift from the bottom, fold it in. Lift from the bottom, fold it in. And just keep doing that until it looks like a dough. Okay? I trust you. Don't worry.
It makes one of us.
If you look silly, I'll just cut this part out. I'll just be like technical difficulties, and then we'll magically have dough at the end. Don't be afraid to tell the camera how it's going.
You don't want to know how it's going.
You'll notice John's got a lot of dough sticking to his hands, and that is going to happen with this recipe. It is a very sticky dough. But it also looks like it's almost come together. It's getting real close. Alright. I will take it from here, sir. You can use the spatula to remove some of that. So everyone in the comments, remind me to buy some food safe gloves so John won't have to fight the dough clumps of doom over here. Okay, so all I've done while John was washing up, I gave it a couple last turns. There was still a little bit of flour that needed a little encouraging. And the next thing I'm going to do is split this dough into 4 even-ish sections. They don't have to be exactly perfect, and you'll see why. But, you know, as even as you can get them. Knife. I'm just kind of scoring the dough into 4 sections. Nothing fancy, just cut in 4. And again, because this is so sticky, you're going to probably want to use a spatula or a spoon to dig out each quarter of the dough. And if you're doing a half recipe, of course, you just need to half it. And it's going to make 2 loaves of biscotti dough instead of the 4 that I'm doing. Okay, so what you do is like, it's Play-Doh time, basically. Make 2 long logs. Now this pan is about 17 by 11, and you want the logs to be 15 inches-ish long. So almost as long as the pan itself. And you can spread it out. You can see, because it's so sticky, you can't roll it out like a snake of dough like you would with a lot of others. So you kind of have to just shape it with your hands. And you know what that means? It's going to have some fingerprints on it, and that's okay. It's fine, because when it bakes, a lot of them are going to flatten out. And then we're going to cut it and bake it again. So your fingerprints, no one's going to notice them in the final product. Okay, so here's how I personally form these. Just squeeze, 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 and stretch them out. Again, it's a lot like you're just playing with Play-Doh, just squeezing it into the shape you want. And then you want to flatten it down. And then flatten it again, but just the sides. Leave the middle rounded and humped up, okay? Because when you have a biscotti, it's usually flat on one side and curved on the other. And we want to make sure that we get that lovely curve. So just flatten down. I end up doing it with my fingers like you're doing the Vulcan salute. Just with 2 fingers split, doing the peace sign. Whatever way works for you. And just smooth the edges down. If you got a little gap, just fill her in. And leave that nice hump in the middle. So once you've got your loaves formed, you want to put them in a preheated 350 degree Fahrenheit oven and let that bake for 25 to 30 minutes. You want to make sure it should be golden brown around the edges and they should be relatively firm. So let's get that baking, and I'll make up the next 2 loaves and I'll see you in a minute. They got a smidge browner than I would have liked. I think I had those in for 28 minutes. So for this round, I'm going to do 25 minutes. And with your oven, it might vary too. So start with the lower number and work up if it's not crisp enough. So the next step is probably what I consider the trickiest, because we need to move that loaf onto this cutting board so we can slice it into individual biscotti. So grab the 2 biggest, flattest spatula you have. Protect your table with some paper towel. Protect your table with some tea towels or a trivet or whatever you've got handy. Now, when I've made biscotti before, I've never had a problem with it sticking. I am noticing that some of the cranberry bits want to stick a little bit. So it might be a good idea, if you try this recipe, to go ahead and line it with some parchment paper first. But I'm lucky, that came up pretty easy. Okay, so what we want to do is cut this on a diagonal, so we're getting the longest possible biscotti pieces, and we want to do about a 1/2 inch thick. This is still very, very hot. You can let it cool down maybe 5 minutes, but don't let it get too cool, because if it does, you're going to have more trouble cutting it. So you see I'm using a serrated knife, and I'm just using a gentle sawing motion. If I were to use, say, a chef knife, like I did for cutting my white chocolate, and just press down, not only is the piece more likely to be uneven, as you can see, but it's also got cracks that are more likely to give you crumbly biscotti. So stick with a serrated knife, a big old bread knife if you've got it, and just gentle, gentle sawing. Do that until both your loaves are nice 1/2 inch slices, and then we're going to arrange them back on the pan and bake them again. And now these are hot, very hot. I'm generally pretty good with handling hot things and just moving them with my bare fingers, but you can absolutely use tongs here if you don't want to burn your fingies. I get that. Alright, let's grab our second loaf. I'm going to cut these ones on an even sharper diagonal to get longer pieces. That first loaf was a little small, and the pieces that came from it came out a little small. So let's cut this one on a sharper diagonal and get bigger pieces. Like I mentioned before, this isn't a particularly difficult recipe. It just has a lot of steps and takes a bit of time. And I mean, I do this for a living, and I needed a little help with it, because the mixing takes a bit of elbow grease. And there's no shame in that. No shame in using a mixer. No shame in having a helper. In fact, I think things are even a little more delicious when you make them with someone you care about. But I'm getting smushy now, so just pretend I didn't say that. None of this mushy crap, right? None of this lovey-dovey romance schlock. We have baking to do. Like men. Strong and manly and not mushy and romantic, and I'm being silly, obviously. Men can like romance too. This smells fantastic, by the way. I'm getting the vanilla and the almond and the white chocolate. This is going to be a heck of a treat. The other thing I'm doing here is I'm omitting the end pieces. You can bake them up. I find they get a little bit too hard. As they are now, they make a nice little snack, so I just save those. As you can see, I'm just arranging these right back on the same sheet they were on. And once we've done that and the other loaves are done baking, I'll chop up those loaves and these guys will go back in. Same temperature, same oven. We're going to toast them for 7 to 10 minutes at 350 and then flip them and toast them a little bit more. We just want to make sure that we're drying it out a bit because we want biscotti to be a little bit hard. You want it to be crunchy. You want it to be dunkable in a coffee or a tea or my personal favorite, hot cocoa. But point being, it's okay if the middle is a little bit soft, but you want to make sure that your biscotti is mostly firm and crunchy. Now, as I'm flipping these, you should notice they're still very soft. So be careful how you're flipping them. There we are. See, it's taking on a lot of brown color on the bottom. That's just what we want. And see, this one is, I think this is the one I cut to show how not to cut, because there it goes, snapping right in half. But I am going to go ahead and flip the rest of these and put them back in the oven for about another 9 minutes until they're toasty on both sides. And when they cool, they should be firm. Oh, that one broke too. Whoops. Alright folks, so the last batch of biscotti is on its final round of toasting. And I'm just going to take a second to show you how I want to decorate these. Of course, you could just leave them how they are. You could do something wacky and crazy. Be creative, have fun. Okay, so 2 simple ways to do this. One is just a dip. Okay, I am dipping it. Just half. You don't want to overdo it and completely overpower it. So just a partial dip like that. Or my personal preference, it looks so it's so simple to do and it looks so pretty. Just a nice drizzle. There you are. So once you've dipped or drizzled your biscotti with your white chocolate, set it aside and let it firm up completely. So I am just going to go ahead and drizzle a whole bunch of these. And I hope that you'll give this a try and have some fun with it as well. If you do, be sure to leave a comment, send me a message, let me know how yours turned out. If you're on YouTube and you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, or give me a follow on Instagram. I am at Baker in the Basement at both those places. Once again, thank you so much for joining me in the Tiny Basement Kitchen. Again, hope you had a great time, and we will see you next time. Bye. Damn it, Cecil. No more Kit Kats for you.